it's Michaela, and you're watching FunsizedStyle. This is my first video that you're seeing without my halo on my head, and I never imagined that it would be 3 months post-surgery, that spinal fusion surgery, that I would be able to film. I should have known because this was a big deal, and it was a big deal, and I remember saying in, I think, one of my last Halo videos, I was hopefully by February I'll be able to film. Boy was I wrong, and boy did this. It was an adventure. Today's video is going to be a Halo Attraction Q&A. I actually filmed this video while I was in Halo Attraction, and then I went to edit the footage and it was completely gone. Obviously my halo is gone. I can't put it back in my head. So unfortunately we are not filming this in the moment anymore, but this information is still valid, and there'll still be people with osteogenesis imperfecta that need to undergo halo attraction at some point, and I want to be that resource for you. Experience is still very much vivid. Haven't forgotten a thing, and I just want to share my experience and knowledge with you and answer all of your burning questions about halo attraction and what the experience is like. Since this is the first time you're seeing my face on this channel in a video form, I posted like 1 or 2 updates, I think, in like the community tab of my channel, but it's obvious that my spinal fusion went so well and I could just cry. But we're not going to cry in this video because it's just a Q&A. We're kind of backtracking a little bit. I have a couple more videos about my Halo Attraction experience that I want to film, because towards the end of my time in Halo Attraction, things got really crazy. Like if you saw my last video, like trying to get towards the end, we had to move my surgery date up because I had complications with traction, and so towards the end it was just really chaotic, and I did not have the physical, mental, or emotional state to be able to film videos, and it was just a really rough time towards the end, and I was just like, take me to the operating room. I just couldn't film towards the end. Like you saw my last Halo Happenings video, and then the video where I announced that I would be in the hospital for Christmas. I said I had filmed this Q&A while I was in traction, and then I went to edit the video and the footage was gone, and by the time I realized that, I was already out of my Halo. Tracking a little bit, I have a few more videos about my Halo Attraction experience that I want to share with you. Again, it's because I think that this information is important, and these were videos that I tried to look up before I embarked on this journey, and they didn't exist, and so I want to bridge that gap and make it exist, and this information is still valid, still important, and hopefully it can be educational. Maybe if you're a med student, a nursing student, Halo Attraction is just not a very common thing. I want to make it more known through my experience, and then we'll get into videos about my spinal fusion surgeries. Well, yeah, surgeries. I ended up having 2, which I'll get into that in those videos. That is going to kind of be like a mini series. It's going to be like a 3 or 4 part series, because there's just so much that I want to share and so many vivid details that I want to share, and I don't want to leave any of it out. But that video would be well over an hour long, maybe even 2 hours. I don't really know. Probably not that long. Definitely not that long. I want to share every detail so that I don't ever forget it, and so that you guys can hear about this miracle that I received, that I know we've all been praying for so long, and I cannot thank you guys enough for being part of this miracle, because I know so many of you were praying for me, like genuinely praying. I know I received some messages from some of you that you haven't prayed in a really long time, but my journey has touched you and motivated you to pray for me, and that is why I share. That is why I'm so grateful for this community, and I cannot wait to start those videos, and that's why I'm so excited I'm eager to talk about my Halo Attraction journey, still, like, don't get me wrong, it was still a very powerful, I'm so grateful for my time in traction, but I'm so excited to get to the really meaty, like, really big miracle that happened that day. It's obvious by looking at me that it went well, and I have a smile on my face, and I don't have a tracheostomy against all odds, and I'm not paralyzed. Prayers were answered in such big ways. I received the miracle that we've all been praying so hard for. I don't take this miracle for granted. So that's all I'm going to say. You'll have to stay tuned. So let's get into this Q&A because it's going to be long. And I know this intro is already like 15 minutes long. I apologize, but this is the first time that I'm filming it since my surgery. And so it feels so good to be in front of the camera again. And I've missed this so much. Missed creating and uploading for you. And yeah, I'm just so happy. So let's get into the Halo Traction Q&A. It feels so weird to be able to film and not have my halo on my head because I had it for so long. And honestly, like, it still feels weird, like, especially right after my surgery, because I had the halo. Sorry, I'm pulling up the questions now. I had the halo for so long, it felt like a part of me. Like, it was a part, like, not part of who I am, but, like, it was literally bolted into my skull. So yeah, it was just weird to not have it anymore. I also want to thank my friend Julia. You guys are going to see a really cool wallpaper that I'm going to put the questions on. I dreamt this up because I like to try to put little touches in my videos here and there, and I dreamt this up, but graphic design programs confuse the heck out of me. I hate them. They're so confusing and difficult. And my friend Julia is like a mastermind, and she brought my vision to life and created this awesome Halo Traction wallpaper for you guys to view and for your enjoyment and make the videos a little more fun. So I'll link her Instagram down below. She's an amazing graphic designer. You guys need to follow her. She is amazing and does so much for me. So for now, for real, let's get into these questions. It feels so weird, like 4 months later, talking about traction, but here we go. Like I said, information is still valid. Okay, the first question is, how do they decide how much weight to add to the halo? Is it based on body weight? This is a great question and a very common question, and one that I wondered as well. Yes, part of it, you are right, it is based on body weight. So very small, so I obviously had a lot less weight than a lot of people in Halo Traction. And I also want to say, there's other causes and other disabilities, and not even like really, like some people's scoliosis is just really severe. So not everybody that undergoes Halo Traction has osteogenesis imperfecta. So many patients are of average size, and so therefore they have a much higher weight limit that they're able to go on for the traction. I had one friend, she went up to like 17 or 20 pounds, something like that, of weight pulling up on her spine. Just keep that in mind as well. Not everybody that undergoes Halo Traction has OIs. Yes, it is based on body weight. I believe my team said they try to do between 5 and 10%. I think it might be I know it's at least 5%. I think it's a little more than that. I am terrible at numbers and math, and I'm obviously not going to share with you my weight, but I'm not even 50 pounds, I'll tell you that much. But I don't even exceed at all. We had to be, careful, and obviously, like, my team that does this, like, her specialty is OI, like, and having an OI specialist is really hard to find, and so, you guys know, I had her for over a decade now, so I'm very blessed to be in an area where I have access to one. So she knows the limits and what's safe for someone like me, and has done this many times. Then with other patients, there was a lot that we had to consider with me because I am so small, even on the type 3 spectrum, I guess you could say. Just like with my neck and everything, like just keeping it also depends not only on your body weight, but also just how you respond to the weight itself. Halo Traction is a very safe treatment, but you can have neurological issues. So when you're in traction, you are very closely monitored, like your team is checking in with you all the time. And I also want to say my halo traction experience was very unique. My hospital is like one of the only hospitals that I know of that sends patients home in halo traction. Most hospitals do this in an inpatient setting. So when I answer these questions, just know that if you or your child goes through with halo traction, more than likely, unless you're at the hospital that I'm at, you will be in an inpatient setting. So things will be a lot easier and different than my experience. My experience wasn't bad. You know, I'm very lucky that I got to be home and not in the hospital for 3 months. It was also a lot more difficult because there's less hands, like there's no nursing help. My team wasn't available 24/7. So, I mean, we didn't run into any major issues except for at the end when my pin started falling out, and I'll get to that in another question. But keep that in mind. My experience wasn't bad. It wasn't unsafe. They wouldn't have done it if it was unsafe. They've done this for a very long time. They set you up with everything that you need and give you education and training on what to look out for, what to do, and keep that in mind when I talk about this as well. At-home halo traction treatment is extremely rare. One of the only hospitals that I know of in the nation that does this. Part of it is how much you can tolerate, because you can have neurological issues, especially if you're not with a surgeon that is familiar and does this often. So it's important to go with somebody that is extremely knowledgeable and has done this many, many times. So you can have headaches, you can have arm pain, like shoulder pain, weakness, anything to do with because of where the pinpoints are in your head. Like obviously I still have the scars. I'm not wearing any makeup except for some lip gloss because I just didn't want to spend time to get ready today. I haven't filmed in so long that I just wanted to talk to you guys, so hope you don't mind. You can have double vision. Anything to do with like just the neurological system could be affected. You could have numbness, like tingling. You can have some side effects like in the beginning as your body gets used to the weight, or even just at some point you can have issues with these, and when you're like going up on the weight you can have these issues. My body did amazing with the weight. I didn't have weakness, I didn't have numbness or tingling, I didn't have vision problems, I didn't have headaches, I didn't have weakness, I didn't have pain, like neck pain, I didn't have shoulder pain, arm pain, nothing. Like no neuro symptoms whatsoever. So that's kind of how it's body weight, and then also just how much your body is able to tolerate the more weight that you're able to go. And some people just don't like the way that it feels. I don't know of anybody that doesn't like it, but I guess there are some. It feels amazing being in traction, like even post spinal fusion. There are days when I miss it. I was a lot straighter in the traction, even more than I am now. That tells you truly how effective halo traction is. Most people get more benefit than I did because my curve was so severe. We knew that I wouldn't get the same amount of benefit that someone else would get because my curve was already so severe going into this. Some people don't like it, the way that it feels. It feels amazing in my opinion to have that weight pulled up and just having your spine stretched out when mine is so curved. So I know that was like a really long answer to this. I just like talking in front of the camera today. It feels so good to be back. But yes, that's how the weight is determined, body weight, how much you can handle, whether you have neuro symptoms or not. If you do have neuro symptoms, I'll like tweak the weight, and then like in several days they'll like try to go up again. It just depends. But we never had to like pause. I could just keep going up and up and up. I made it to like 8 pounds. I made it to my goal weight within a few days, so it was great. My body responded amazing. The next question is, are there other alternatives to halo traction for a person with osteogenesis imperfecta and scoliosis? If you have very, very severe scoliosis, I do not know the degree threshold that typically do halo traction. Just because you have scoliosis and OI does not mean that you have halo traction. There are many people I know with OI that have had a spinal fusion that do not have halo traction. So I don't know what the degree threshold was. It didn't really matter for me because my curve was well over 100 degrees. It was over 120 even. There was no, it was best to do it to give me the best chance to straighten it as much as we could before going into the operating room for my spinal fusion. It gives me less time under anesthesia in an already long surgery. It gives me a better outcome, less chance of becoming paralyzed, and just all of the above. Your question is looking for an alternative of a way to slowly stretch the spine before a spinal fusion without doing halo traction. The answer is no. I've never heard of anything. My team has never said anything. I don't know anyone else that has ever done anything else. Once you're to that point of needing halo traction before a spinal fusion, that means that your curve is already so severe that, like, there's no, you're that severe in needing traction, or a candidate for traction and needing a fusion. Like, your curve is really severe, and that's how it's done. Like, that's how it's corrected, is with halo traction. Now, in several years from now, a decade from now, 2 decades from now, with research, I'm basically becoming a powerhouse for scoliosis research. So I'm a huge advocate for that. I will always be an advocate for that, and going through this successfully without a trach, without being paralyzed, made me realize this was not only made possible by the Lord and His miracles, but also through the years of research of neuromuscular scoliosis, the type of scoliosis that I have. Through years of research of neuromuscular scoliosis, they have found a way to be able to at least stop the progression of a spine like mine. Like, several decades ago, a surgeon wouldn't have even touched me. Because of the knowledge and the research and the tools and the advanced medical technology that we have now is the reason that I'm still here today without a tracheostomy, without becoming paralyzed. It truly took a medical miracle as well, but it is, again, also because of the years of research, dedicated researchers that have come before me to do this. And I am just like, people don't think of orthopedic issues as needing medical research funding, and orthopedic issues in general are so underfunded and so under-researched, and I just want to be a voice for that segment of medical research, because I feel like in the medical research realm, there's so many ways that we have made so many advancements and treatments for different medical conditions and diseases. Then there's some that have just fallen behind and not made a lot of progress, and orthopedic issues is one of those. And I'm a powerhouse for scoliosis research now because of the research that's been done before me, that I'm alive and well today, and it's such a blessing to still be here, against all odds, not have a trach and not be paralyzed. No, there's no other alternative once you reach that point of needing traction and becoming a candidate for traction. There's no other method that I know of, that I've ever heard or seen, and not do halo traction. The next question is, what is the main goal of halo traction? The main goal, so why a patient would need halo traction, as I mentioned previously, not every scoliosis patient, not every spinal fusion candidate needs halo traction. If you are a candidate for a spinal fusion, if your surgeon says we need to do a spinal fusion, that does not mean you need to do halo traction beforehand. I'm sure there is a certain degree threshold that they consider doing halo traction. I do not know that degree number because, as I mentioned previously, it didn't matter because my curve was already well over 120 degrees, and you get that bad, you have. The main goal is to slowly stretch the spine to straighten it out before a spinal fusion surgery, because once a curve is that severe, if you go straight into a spinal fusion surgery, it puts you more at risk for complication and becoming paralyzed and all of the things, because once your vertebrae and all of that is that compressed, halo traction just not eliminates a lot of those risks, but lessens a lot of those risks, or tries to lessen a lot of those risks. And for me, we were not going into this with the idea of perfection. Our goal with traction was just to straighten me out as much as possible before my fusion, to give me less time in the OR and make it easier for my surgeon to straighten me out, literally. And I'll get into this more in my spinal fusion surgery mini-series, but I think I mentioned this several times in my Halo Happenings videos, but I'm not sure. I was connected to my halo during my spinal fusion surgery And then once they closed up my spine, they put me back on my back and removed the halo. That also helped lessen my risk of becoming paralyzed because it gave them more room to be able to operate, because my spine while I was on the operating table. I have a friend that checked in on me during my surgery. She works in the OR. Said my arms were like, they put you up on the thing, I don't know what it's called, and my arms were like stretched out, and you basically just put your arms up on this thing and you're like all the way stretched out, and then I was connected to the halo. I was like stretched to the max that my body would allow, so that kind of helped me get as straight as possible for the fusion and to be able to also stretch the muscles and tendons and make them looser and more flexible, give more flexibility during the fusion as well to get everything lined up appropriately. So that is the main goal of halo traction. The next question is, do you have constant pain or a lot of headaches? So this was something that I was really curious about as well, if I would have, and especially the headaches thing, because you have 9 screws in your head, right? I didn't have headaches throughout the whole thing at all, and for 99% of it I was not in pain. When I woke up from surgery, like the halo placement surgery, I was really surprised how much pain I was in. Obviously I knew it would be painful, I knew it would be awful, but I've had 3 fractures at one time. I know what a lot of pain is like, and my pain tolerance is abnormally high. I didn't think it'd be horrible. I mean, I knew it would be horrible, but not like unbearable. But it was a lot. It was more, and I think it also felt like more because it was more than I expected. So it was kind of like that mental game. I don't know, but it was a lot. The first week was awful. They told me when I was inpatient that the first week was the worst, and then once I got past the first week, everything should be alright. I was starting to lose faith in them a little bit because it was rough. It wasn't even like a headache. It was like 100 times more than a headache. Like it wasn't even like a headache type of pain. It was just like this constant, like like really not sharp, but just like intense pain, like radiating throughout my whole head. Even after my skull got used to the pins, I could still feel each individual screw in my skull. Once I hit that first week, or past that first week, it was like night and day. I was off Tylenol, Motrin, and I wasn't on any. After that, I did not have constant head pain. After that first week, I did not have any pain. It was amazing. I was so glad, because I was like, honest to gosh, if it would have been like that the whole 3 months, I could not have done it. I could not have let myself suffer like that. I would have had to been like, take this halo off my head. So if you're going into halo traction, at least my experience is that the first week is horrible. You don't know how you're going to do it. Give yourself grace. And just like, I wish somebody would have told me before this, instead of after I woke up, that the first week is the roughest. And again, this is just my experience. Yours may be different than mine. It was like night and day difference. And then I was like, I can do this. You know, I can get through this. This is bearable now. I was just really surprised at, coming from a girl that's had 3 fractures at once, I was surprised at how much pain I was in. I was just really surprised. That's the best word I can think of. It was a wake-up call for me. It was a shock moment. So that was kind of my experience on pain, and then of course the moment of getting the pin replaced was awful. That's another video for another time. That was obviously the worst pain I'd ever felt in my life. During the rest of the duration of traction, I take that back. I guess I did have one other instance in pain. Now this instance is not one that you will typically have, because I was in traction for so long. My pins started falling out. There's a bunch of questions about that, which I'll get into. But when I reached the point where I lost so many pins, we couldn't get them replaced. We couldn't put me through that again because of what happened in the office. It's a long story. Maybe that's another video for another day. Let me know if you guys want to see that video. I had to disconnect from traction, and I could no longer be connected to the weight, but at that point, we were only a week out from my surgery. 2 weeks. Week and a half, 2 weeks. I wasn't going to lose the progress I had made those 3 months. That moment that I had to be disconnected from traction for the whole day, I was fine being disconnected because I would have to like disconnect to ride in the car. If I had to like go to an appointment or be disconnected in the car for safety reasons, because if you slam on the brakes and I'm connected to the pulley system, my neck would fly forward. So I really didn't go anywhere except for medical appointments because it felt so good to be connected. I never wanted to disconnect for long lengths of time. And then the only other time I would disconnect is going to the bathroom and taking a shower. And then transferring from my wheelchair to the bed and bed to wheelchair. So all 4 of those instances like were only maximum of, when I would shower and stuff, like maximum of like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And then like when we'd go to Ann Arbor, it'd be like 2 hours. It was fine for the first 3 hours that I had of my first day that I was disconnected for the whole day. And then after that 3-hour mark, my neck and my head, it felt like it was gonna blow up. It was weird. It wasn't like, it was like a headache, but like, again, that intense pressure, but like, it was a different kind of intense pressure than the pressure that I felt after I woke up from the halo surgery. I don't know how to describe it, but I literally felt like my head and neck were gonna blow up, and I texted my friend and I was like, hey, and she felt that way. My friend that I texted, like, I was like, am I alright? She felt that way after her spinal fusion surgery because most people don't get their halo off or like disconnect from the weight until after they're awake from their fusion. So I would have had that same feeling had I been connected up until my fusion. But since I had already been disconnected for, you know, so I didn't have that after my fusion. I just had it beforehand. My neck was just really weak and just really intense pain and pressure in my head and neck. And it lasted for a day and a half or something. It was really intense. But then after that, it completely went away. My body was just used to having that weight pulling up on me, and then to have all that weight taken off, it was just a moment, you know, like, I don't know. But every other day, I had no pain, and I felt really good. I felt like my normal self. Just give yourself grace that first week, because in my experience, it's a lot worse than they tell you it is. And that's how it was for literally every one of my friends, because they were like, yeah, it was a lot worse than they told me. And I think they do that if you knew how bad it was, maybe you wouldn't do it. I don't know. But give yourself grace that first week, because it does go away after the first week, at least in my experience. So the next question, we have quite a bit of questions about the pin saga, them falling out. First question is, this is kind of like a broad question. A couple of people ask this. I'm gonna answer it once, obviously. Why did the screws keep falling out towards the end? How did they keep falling out? Just like all these answers, but especially this one is going to be a little bit of a lengthy explanation. With this halo traction experience for me, because my curve was so severe, and is still so severe, we had to think outside the box. How could I get the most benefit from halo traction? Because most people more benefit in halo traction than I would, because even in halo traction, even if you're to the point needing halo traction because your curve is that severe, most halo traction patients are not as severe as I would. My team had to think outside of the box. How can Michaela get the most benefit with her really severe curve? Because we know halo traction works so well for so many patients, but Michaela's curve is really big. Part of that was because I was doing so well in the traction and responding so well to the traction and not having any neuro effect, they decided that meant extending my treatment, my time in traction as long as we possibly. Most people with osteogenesis imperfecta that I know and that I've talked to, they do traction for either, I've had friends do it for 2 weeks, I've had friends do it for 4, and I've had some do it for 6, and I think I had one do it for 8, I think. I went beyond that. My team decided on doing an additional 4 weeks, so I did 12 weeks. Due to OR scheduling and who my surgeon wanted in the OR that day, anesthesia-wise, respiratory-wise, cardiac-wise, because I have respiratory cardiac issues and all of the things, and making sure he had the neurosurgeon there, because my curve was so severe. Anytime you're dealing with a spinal cord, there's a risk of becoming paralyzed. But because my curve was so severe, my risk was higher. My surgery wasn't originally scheduled until January 18th, so that meant that I would have done like 17 weeks of traction, and they felt that I would be safe until then, but that was before my pins were falling out. And the other issue we had was we couldn't schedule my surgery at the same time, my fusion at the same time that my halo traction was scheduled, because my insurance only allows pre-approval up to 6 weeks in advance for a surgery. I was going to be in traction longer than 6 weeks, so they couldn't get that approval, so that made scheduling really complicated. And so it took a lot of maneuvering and a miracle to that surgery date moved up. And you can actually go watch my last Halo Happenings video where I talk a lot about that. That was kind of the saga of extending the treatment, what that meant. Halo traction is very safe treatment. There was no danger to me being in it longer than typical, especially because I wasn't responding so well. But there comes a point where the body recognizes the screws as a foreign object, whether you have OI or not. I had these for so long. They're not typically meant to stay in that long. Halo traction was not really designed to have this be not a permanent thing, but like 12 weeks is a long time. And when most people do 4 to 6 maximum, and I'm doing 12, that's double what it's anticipated for. But with medical treatments, sometimes you have to do what's not typical. And doing what's not typical is basically the mantra of my life. I'll bless my surgeon's team, because that's just how my life goes. My body had just had enough. You're not meant to have screws bolted in your head, and my body was saying no more. Another question, I'll just go ahead and answer it. And this answer is the reason that the screws fell out due to your osteogenesis imperfecta. And the answer to that is yes and no. And the reason that I say yes and no is because for having type 3 OI, my skull is very strong. I've had a lot of ear-based surgeries, like skull-based surgeries, and my otolaryngologist is also very knowledgeable about OI. I'm so blessed to be at like so close to like an OI mecca. Michigan Mecca and OI Michigan Mecca. First time that she ever operated on me, she was really surprised, because something that she took into consideration on how she was going to operate was the probability that my skull is very soft. But when she got in there, she was very pleasantly surprised to see how strong my skull is, despite having type 3. Typically, OI patients with type 3 have very soft skulls. I mean, mine's still softer than like somebody without OI, but not as soft as she typically sees. So mine's closer to normal than most OI type 3 patients, if that makes sense. That was good, because that meant that had I not had the extended treatment, the extended time in traction, had I only went the typical of what traction is meant for, 4 to 6 weeks, I would not have had issues with the pins falling out, because in that 4 to 6 week mark, from the beginning to the 6 week mark, I had no problems with the pins loosening or falling out or anything like that. They were in tight as could be. It was only after that 6 week mark and beyond that we started facing those challenges. We knew the benefit of me going into traction, being in traction longer, outweighed inconveniences, I guess you could say. It was discouraging and annoying to have to disconnect towards the end. I'm still glad that we decided to do the extra time in traction. Like, we saw a lot of benefit in traction. I felt a lot of benefit, like, those days where I, like, miss it. That's kind of the reason and why the pins kept falling out. Because there's a limit, no matter whether you have OI or not, on your body starts to say no more and starts to reject them, basically. It's just not a normal thing. The body is very, very smart, and that's why after years of research that it's typically only done for 4 to 6 weeks, because that's when they've noticed complications typically start to arise. I think those are all the questions about the pins falling out. There is one more. Why did you not go into surgery to have a new pin put in? Because I talked briefly in my Halo Happenings video, my last one that weren't going to put me through the in-office process anymore. They weren't going to put anybody through that anymore. I don't know if I want to do a video on that. If you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments. By the time I lost so many pins at once, because there was one day where I lost 3 in a day, I think, and I had 9 to start with. By the time I lost so many where there was no longer enough pins in my skull to support the weight that needed to be pulled up on my skull, I had let my team know, and so they were already working on getting into the OR for my fusion, because at this point we were so close to me being done anyways. We decided the best bet was the best option was to just move my spinal fusion up. I had already been in traction because I had to disconnect on the exact day of my 12-week mark. So I remember because I did Monday milestones on my Instagram, and on the day that I took the 12-week picture, because on that Monday I had hit 12 weeks. I had completed 12 weeks exactly in traction is when I had to disconnect. So because I had already done the maximum that they wanted me to do, they, you know, felt that I needed to do. Having me be in traction till the 18th, till January 18th would have been fine had I not faced these complications. Because I was so close to the OR, we didn't want to put me through another surgery to me just have another pin put in. Also because, although I kind of wish we would have, because it was so uncomfortable being disconnected from traction. It was a lot more uncomfortable than I thought it would be because my body got used to being in traction. And so, you know, having been connected for literally 24/7 for 90 days straight, over 90 days, yeah, 90 days straight, it was like insanity. Like, it was, my body was just used to it. And so to just be disconnected now, it was just, my spine was used to being stretched out and my lungs having more space, and I instantly noticed a difference with my breathing not being not being connected. I wish we would have went back into the OR. It would have, even though it was only 2 weeks of discomfort, it was a long 2 weeks because I had to spend it in bed because I was so uncomfortable being disconnected from traction. I just would not have approved it in time. Like, by the time we would have gotten approval from my insurance to do it, because we couldn't get an emergency approval, I wasn't dying. Like, a halo pin replacement is not considered an emergency surgery. So by the time we would have gotten approval from my insurance, it would have been time for me to go into the operating room for my fusion. And also my surgeon's schedule was full as it was, like completely full, especially because it was in December. Like, she does so many surgeries during that time because a lot of parents want their kids to do surgeries during like Christmas break because they don't have school and their parents have off and stuff like that. So between all of those factors, that's why I couldn't go back into the operating room to the pin replace. They hold me over those 2 weeks so that I could be connected, but in hindsight that would have been what I wanted, but it just wasn't made possible because of insurance ultimately. Whatever, it's fine and I made it, but that's the brokenness of our system for another day. So the next question is, does it hurt when you sleep with the halo traction? No. Obviously, when I say something doesn't hurt, that means past that first week. You guys know the first week was horrible. But no, every other day, nope, it was fine. I would say sleeping was difficult because I had three pins on this side, 2 on this side, and then 4 in the front. So I had 9 screws in my head, and I couldn't lay on my side because I had pins in the side of my head. So it would have just like jabbed me and because I was connected to the traction, there was a pulley system on my back that went underneath my mattress. Because I was connected, the weight like pulling me up, I couldn't move. Like, I was stuck laying on my back. Sleeping was really, really hard. I think one of the most difficult parts of the process was sleeping, just because I could not move my head and neck. By the time morning came around, my neck, like, I was so excited to get in my wheelchair because my neck was just like lodged in this position for 8 hours and I could not move. So my neck would like hurt so bad in the morning. I'll answer this in another question as well, but I liked being in my wheelchair because I could like move my head like normal. I had more. Sleep was really hard, but it really difficult. Very uncomfortable, and I think that was what was so difficult at the end after the started falling out. Not only could I not be connected, so I wasn't getting that breathing relief and that comfort relief, but I also couldn't. I had to be done with traction, but I couldn't even roll on my side. still, because I still had the halo on my head. I think towards the end I just got tired. I was just really tired because I did not get the best quality of sleep for 90 days. So it was difficult, but it was not painful. How do the pins fall out? Do they naturally unscrew? So the way that I knew the first time I ever lost one of the pins, it was the 7-week mark, or end of 6-week mark. I felt this really sharp jab in my head. It was like a really sharp jab in my head. There's a list that they gave during my admission after my halo surgery of things to look out for, and like when you should call the doctor. Because with halo attraction there are risks, as I talked about. But then I remember her saying, before you call us, always make sure the pins are in tight. That changes everything. I knew going into this that could be a risk, especially towards the end. So I remember that day I was like nearing the 6-week mark where most people are done, and I know that this really isn't intended for this to go much longer. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is when I start having complications. So I remember it happened when I got out of the shower. I got this really sharp pain, and so I checked all the pins, and like sure enough one was like moving, like I could spin it completely around, and that's when I was like, oh no. I weren't really concerned about it because that's why they put 1 or 2 extras, and so the fact that I lost one wasn't a big deal. But it was when I started to lose 2 and 3 is when I had to have that replacement, because there's a certain amount of pins that you have to have for the amount of weight that you need. How they come undone, I don't know. But what I do know is there's like the screw, and there's the nut, and the nut is tightened right up against my forehead to the screw. I'll insert like a picture or something. I took a couple close-ups. If you don't like seeing a screw sticking out of somebody's head, maybe skip ahead a couple minutes. That one was still kind of in, it was just loose. I had one pin, well, a lot of pins towards the end, came like completely out, and they were just kind of hanging there. So at that point then I would just go ahead and unscrew it completely out, because at that point it was already out of the bone, so I didn't feel it. That sharp jab was the pain screw coming out of the bone, or working its way out of the bone. So at that point I would just unscrew it, and so I don't have this pointy thing just hanging by my forehead. Just pull it all the way out, like first time my surgeon instructed me to do it. But as far as how, I don't know. It's just getting the whole like your body rejecting it as a foreign object, and it's not really designed to go 6 to 8 weeks. We had to think outside of the box for me. But most people, because they don't do it as long as I did, will not experience pins falling out. It can't. I'm not saying it can't happen, because I'm sure it has happened for some. But up until that 6-week mark, I never had any issues with the pins loosening in personal experience. The next question is, how do you wash your hair and face? So my face, I was pretty much just covered, like the bar, you guys know, the bar just went across here, so I would kind of like have to get a washcloth like underneath there. It was really rough. I could not use like moisturizer, like no skincare products, because I was on sterile protocol and I have infections in the pin site, so I just had to use water. Of course, my whole face here was like completely free, and so I just washed like normal. My hair, every surgeon has a different protocol, but my surgeon allowed me to use unscented, fragrance-free baby shampoo. I used California baby shampoo. I have it right here. I was in traction for 12 weeks, and 2 of these 8.5 fluid ounce bottles got me through 12 weeks. So I'm still washing my hair with baby shampoo, because I am finishing up my 2nd bottle just so I don't waste it. But this is actually really nice baby shampoo, and it's shampoo and body wash. I like unscented products anyways, and I like this because it has minimal ingredients. It's made in the US, and I'm supporting a small business. So this is it. This is what I use. So if you are instructed to use unscented, fragrance-free baby shampoo, this is the one I recommend, because it has limited ingredients. You guys know I'm trying to be better about the ingredients in my product, and after a lot of research, this is the one I chose. Some have to use like a special, like certain kind of shampoo. Somebody was telling me, is it dish soap? Not dish soap. I don't know, something really weird. I really hope you don't have a surgeon that has that protocol. I'm glad that I was able to at least use some form of an actual shampoo, a product that was meant for your hair, so I didn't incur hair damage. Throughout this process, because I'd been bald by now. But yeah, so this is what my surgeon instructed me to use. But don't just go out and buy this because for halo attraction purposes, because this is what I use, because every surgeon has their own protocol and what they feel safe of how to wash your hair. So I asked them if this was, I had to get this approved. I had to get this approved by them if I could use it, and they saw it and they said yes, that's fine. So that's how I washed my hair. I had to have help to wash my hair because I had the pins, and so like it was really hard to like get like the sides of my hair because we had to like work within the pins, and my poor mom, like it took forever to like get in between all the pins and stuff, and it was obviously something I could not do on my own. And with all the pins, we ended up using like the shower head. Yeah, so that was how I washed my hair. That was also another really difficult part of the process, but I'm grateful for this product that got me through those times. And I also really like this product because it's truly some products will say, oh, it's unscented, but it still has a scent. This smells like nothing, like no fragrance. So it is truly unscented, unlike some products that say it's unscented, but there's still some kind of scent, fragrance, odor, whatever word you want to use. The next question is, does traction make transferring to bed much more complicated? No, not really. I just had to disconnect from the pulley system on my wheelchair, and then my dad would transfer me into my bed and then connect the carabiner clip to the pulley system on my mattress. That was that. It really wasn't. So other than the extra step of connecting and disconnecting, it wasn't more or any, like that part of the routine wasn't any different other than the connecting. And a couple of my friends, there's done at this hospital where you had to stay connected during a transfer, and you had one person like pulling up on the weight and like 2 other people lifting you to like support the weight and holding the weight, holding it steady, and I don't know how that worked. But I was allowed to disconnect to transfer, so it was not anymore. The next question is, how much can you move, tilt your head in the sling? Obviously, I no longer have the halo on, but if you see in my other videos, I was able to move my head side to side completely, no restriction, in my wheelchair. And then I could not move my head fully. I could not move my head up and down with the carabiner connected to my halo because it's obviously meant to pull me up, so they didn't want me like moving my head and neck up and down. I could move side to side completely. I could not move my head up and down. I basically, when I was in the bed, since I was like on my pillow and everything, I was basically 100% restricted in head and neck movement because the pins would like get caught on the pillow, and I could not lay on my side. I could not turn my head, basically, so I had no movement head and neck wise in the bed, pretty much almost full movement in my chair other than up and down. That was kind of the range of motion that you have during traction, during heel traction, as far as the ability to move your head and neck. The next question is, were the pins uncomfortable or painful the first week? I pretty much answered this already, but again, that first week, yes, it was awful. It was 10 times more pain than I ever thought, and then after that first week, it was not painful, except for when they started coming loose, like 7 weeks later. I would get that sharp pain, but then once the pin was out, it wasn't painful anymore. But, you know, the whole rest of the time, it was not painful. I could feel each individual screw in my skull, but it was not painful at that point. So I was so grateful. The next question is, how are you keeping it clean when the screws are loose and out? There was a protocol that we had to do every day. My mom had, because I couldn't see them obviously, my mom had to clean the pin sites every day with saline and hydrogen peroxide, half something, I don't know. Again, every surgeon is different, so like don't go mixing the solution because this is how I did it. But that's the 2 products that we used and were instructed to use, and so we had to clean each one every day, and they had to be kept really clean. I ended up getting 2 pin site infections in 12 weeks. It's not uncommon. The longer you are in traction, the higher your risk for infection goes up. Despite, you can do everything right, and things can still go wrong. And I think out of 90 days, we missed 1 day of cleaning. And it wasn't even during that week that we missed a cleaning is when I got the infection. So it just goes to show again that you can do everything right and things can still go wrong. I mean, it's not bad. I just had to be on antibiotics for 10 days. And the antibiotic, because there's one type of antibiotic that works for this type of infection, and then along with my allergies, so it was like I have really severe reactions to a lot of antibiotics, and the one I was on still ended up making me feel pretty sick, but it wasn't as severe a reaction as the others made me feel, so we had to kind of pick the lesser of several evils. That's kind of how we had to keep them, why we had to keep them clean and sterile, and that's why I was on sterile protocol. I could not wear makeup, I could not use my skincare products, could only wash my face very minimally, so that's kind of the process. The cleaning took a while, because you really have to like get in there and clean it, and it would get crusty and gross. Important that you clean it every day and don't miss it. But again, if most hospitals, you're in an inpatient setting, so the nurses do it for you every day. That's not how my hospital did it, so we had to do it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but again, it's just less hands, and so that's how that. What surprised you the most about being in Halo attraction? One is I was surprised that I had as much pain as I did the first week. Again, coming from a girl that's had 3 fractures at one time, my pain tolerance is pretty high, but the type of pain that this was pretty intense. So I was really struggling that first week. And the thing was, it wasn't like when I have a fracture or something, like where if I don't move it, it doesn't hurt, or like I can reposition it in a way that it doesn't hurt as bad. Like the pain was like literally in my head, like radiating throughout my whole skull, and it wasn't like I could reposition my head. So I think that was the hardest part. And then the other thing that surprised me, the moment that I realized I was getting respiratory relief, obviously that was our goal with it, but being that my curve is and was so severe, I didn't know if I would really feel the difference, because it was so severe and we were not expecting perfection, and I wasn't going to get the same amount of relief as someone else, because again, even though I reached that point of traction, I'm long past the point of when you typically do traction. I waited like way more years than I should have, but again, I'll link that video as to why. So I was surprised at the moment. I was like, wow, I'm seeing relief. And when I would connect and disconnect to transfer from my bed to my wheelchair, I noticed like an obvious difference in my lung capacity when I connected and when I wasn't. And so that really surprised me. I was like, this is working. And when I reached that week, I think it was like the 2 or 3 week mark, I started really noticing that it was working. When I started getting kind of discouraged because I didn't notice a change as quick as most of my friends, but again, my curve was a lot more severe. But when I got to that moment, I was like, wow. And that was the moment where I was like, this is worth it, this is working. My team was really surprised at how quick I was also noticing a difference. So those were the 2 things that surprised me. It's a long process. It was a long process for me and a lot longer than most. The last question that I'm going to answer, any tips or tricks you would pass on to future Halo patients? I thought this would be a perfect question to end this video on. My biggest is have patience, give yourself grace, especially to get through that first week, and it takes time to get used to it. That first week I was like, if you guys saw my Instagram post, I was like, I can't do this, this is awful. Like I felt like I was suffering and just the pain, and it was a lot worse that first week than I thought it would be. Just know that it's going to be worth it, because if somebody like me say that it was worth it in my severe situation, I think anybody can get through it. I was grateful to be at home, but it is a lot of work, traction or at home in traction, because less nursing, no nursing hands help. Like obviously we managed, but there were days where it was a lot. Like when my pins kept falling out and I had calling and telling them I lost another one. So just keep in mind that everything I'm sharing with you today, there's so many factors that made my experience so different than typical Halo traction patients, and you guys have to understand everything about my life is anything but typical. If I saw benefit in traction, my compressed lungs, I know you will too. Know that there's going to be hard days, and there were days, especially towards the end, where I was like, I'm really grateful for these benefits, but I'm ready to be done. And it was a long road, and obviously again, most people aren't in it as long as I was. But you'll know when you're ready, you're gonna feel like you're ready to be done. Being out of traction now, like I said, there are days that I miss it, and so enjoy the relief. I know that sounds weird, and my friends would talk like that too, and I'd be like, what do you mean? And now I know what they mean. Kind of some tips that I would share with you, but this video is already over an hour long probably, so I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. My battery light is flashing because I've been filming for over an hour. I hope I answered all your questions. If not, leave them in the comments below, because I want to keep this discussion going, because so little information from a patient perspective about traction. I want to keep the conversation going, so if you guys have questions, leave them in the comments and I will do a part 2 if there are enough, but if not, I'll just answer them in the comments. Feel free to ask, I'm very open about it, as you guys know. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope I answered all your burning questions about halo traction and can provide more education on a topic that is not talked about very much. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! It feels so